Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to another SLG Meetup. Today we're going to talk about watches, and not just any type of watches. We're going to talk about the best luxurious watches, and for that we're going to have the CEO of Luxury Bazaar. His name is Roman Sharf, and he's going to tell us how he has built one of the world's largest buyer and retailer for luxury watches. What's happening? How are you?
I'm doing well. I have one of those Tuesdays that rolled into one of those Mondays that rolled into a Tuesday, if you will, right? But I wasn't gonna miss this. It will give me a good break from typing up emails and meeting with my staff. So it's always a good excuse.
Exactly. No, I'm glad you joined us from Philadelphia, all the way here to tell us all about the interesting industry that the luxury watches has to offer. I mean, it's quite an interesting world, huh?
It is indeed. You have to have a good sense of humor to be in this business. I'll tell you that.
How do you get, I mean, obviously, we're going to talk a little bit more about how you've developed such a successful company with Luxury Bazaar to become one of the world's largest buyer and retailer for luxury watches. But I wanted to know, how did you get in the watch industry?
So I guess let's call it a little bit of luck. If you consider when I got into this industry 20 years ago, you're looking at a time where this new thing came about called e-commerce, right? So right time at the right place, if you will. And really it started not with e-commerce, it started with a company called eBay, right? So eBay was this new big thing 20 years ago where people were able to buy and sell things, whatever they might be. And I had a gentleman that approached me and said to me, Roman, you happen to know all this computer stuff, right? I happen to have a computer engineering background. I was at the time working for a big bank in New York City. He goes, you know, this computer stuff, I have this watches. How about you, I'll give them to you. Here's your cost, and put them on eBay and sell them. And I'm like, this shit is never going to work. I'm like, who's going to buy $10,000 on eBay? It was actually my wife that said, you know what, Roman, I think we should give this a shot. And I'm like, whatever, right? And so technically the joke is that she started the business, not me. Because while she was pregnant with my son, she was putting these things up on eBay. I was helping her. And lo and behold, in 2 months' time, we sold a watch for $10,000 to a gentleman in Germany, right? And I was just wow. This guy sent me a wire, and I'm like, wow, this actually may work. My son was born. My wife got away from Luxury Bazaar altogether. And I started working a pretty demanding job and selling watches on the side on eBay. And I guess 2.5 years later, the rest is history. That's when I built a website. That's when I made it a real business. I left the banking industry, and here we are 20 years later.
And also, it takes a very supportive wife to really be all right with handling the kids while you're away. It's about believing in the vision. And I guess you two were very aligned on that, especially if the initial thought was from her to do that.
It's let's just say she doesn't stop bitching. It doesn't stop ever. It's actually going to be my 20th year anniversary this December, and nothing changes.
Well, look, this is not the type of podcast for that, but I'm sure you'll be able to speak at podcasts on how to maintain a marriage like that, because 20 years, wow, congratulations. That's the real luxurious thing right there. Now, I wanted to ask you, Roman, because obviously we're going to get more in depth about the different type of watches and the industry itself, but I'm very curious with that progress that you've had over the 20 years and building a brand. Like, what's the best way for you to position yourself so people want to buy from you?
So really, again, mind you, it's sort of a push-pull. So in a sense, it was easy because when I started this, it was me and a handful of guys. I can name off the top of my head. There's maybe 10, 12 guys that were doing the same thing as I was doing, because we were sort of first to market, if you will, right? When it came to selling watches via e-commerce. And the pull was the fact that we didn't have social media back then. The only thing you could rely on is really creating a name for yourself. The number one tool in the very beginning was your eBay feedback, right? Because everybody started jumping on and trying to sell. And the advantage I had then is one of the first ones, I can always refer back to my eBay and literally just give referrals that, hey, you could contact a buyer on eBay saying, you bought from this guy, how was your experience? So it was really providing really, really good customer service experience, making sure, listen, I've been on eBay for 20 years and my feedback is 100% positive. It's very difficult to do, right? So we jumped over we jumped over hoops because those clients essentially became your referrals. And because it was within the eBay system, people could ask a question to the other members and get a real answer. You can fake that, if you will, right? And as times were moving on, it was really about, again, grabbing as much market share as we possibly could in the first 10 years prior to social media becoming active and having the ability to show yourself, your company, your people, etc. And today it translates to what I like to call the 3 C's, and that's creative content consistently.
Now, what would you say is the #1 channel that generates the most leads for you?
So it was Instagram earlier on, but it's when we got on YouTube, because YouTube is so much more transparent, and the approach we took with YouTube. When my CMO approached me 3 years ago, he goes, Roman, we need a face of the company. We need somebody to start shooting videos. I said, okay. He put a camera in front of me. They put a camera in front of me, and I started doing a series called What's on My Desk. And that series basically showed me in the light of someone that is passionate about the industry, #1, knowledgeable about the product. But I took a different spin. I didn't want to do the nuts and bolts, which is information you can pretty much find anywhere online today. What goes into a watch, how the watch is made. I did mention a lot of that stuff, but that wasn't the main focus. The main focus was popularity, get values, where the market was, where the market is. So every video, every week I would put out, I'd pick up 3 to 10 watches and just really talk about them. I never scripted anything. I turned on the camera and I just started talking, right? And obviously translated into Q&A, if you will. So I started putting out a Q&A every Tuesday because people kept flooding me with questions, and I realized that would be great content. And then it wasn't, and then my CMO came up with an idea of doing a reality type of show, a day in the life, if you will. He came to my office, said, look, we'll just get a bunch of guys to follow everybody around with cameras, and we're going to put out this reality TV show. And I said, absolutely not. I said, I don't want to know the inner workings of my business, my everyday, and I just don't want to do that. He started, no, we need this. I said, no. About 6 months to a year later, Anthony, the timepiece gentleman, comes out with a series of a day in the life. Avi, my CMO, ran into my office screaming and yelling, see, I told you, we should have done this a year ago. Like I said, he had a whole sizzler ready and everything. I said, I don't care what you tell me. Monday, somebody's following you with a camera. And that's how Gray Market was born. Yeah, I think it was that show that really propelled us to the next level, gave us that next level exposure, where to a point where I'm walking around on the streets, people are stopping me, taking pictures of me. All of a sudden I became a celebrity, which I don't think I am, but it's actually quite nice. A community, if you will, was created around that, with a fan base reaching to every corner of the world.
What's like one moment that you're like, holy shit, this was like such a difficult moment in my life, and what did you learn from it?
When it comes to the actual business side of things, I'm going to say the financial crisis of 2008, right? This is when everything crashed, everything stopped, the wheels stopped. And it was a scary moment for me because at that point, my company was well on the way to grow bigger and better. And I've invested a lot of money back into my business at that point. Expenses were obviously a lot higher now versus when I was working out of my basement. I now had an office that I bought. I now had staff that I had to pay for, to include accounting, content, shipping. There was a lot of expenses already. The business was scaling. And I never took on an investor in the last 20 years I've done this. So everything that I've done is I literally grew the business from about $12,000 to where it is today. So when the wheels stop and the sales stops, that was my first scary moment in life. And I wasn't scared about the money aspect of it, right? I was scared about the lifestyle that I had for my family. But the one lesson that I learned from it is to anticipate, right? To anticipate, to watch the markets closer, to watch markets not to be here, but sort of open up the blindness to the rest of the world and see some of those far-fetched factors in the economy that could potentially affect my market, like watching the stock market, watching the bond market, watching where people that make money make their money.
Now, what would be the biggest takeaway out of all these years that have made you the person that you are today?
The biggest takeaway, I don't really have a takeaway just yet because I'm not done, if you will, right? I am working towards a common goal, and that is to eventually sell my company. I've identified the potential buyers, and the takeaway is something that I started way back when I was 13 years old and I had my first job delivering newspapers, right? You have to dream big and take small steps to get there. That's what I've always said. It's a good thing to say, well, you know what, I'm going to be a millionaire one day. One of the questions I ask every single employee that I hire here is I ask them, what's the one thing you need to have $1 million? And they start getting into random answers where the answer is really simple. To have $1 million, you first have to have $1, right? And that's something I realized early on and said, okay, always dream big. Set your goals higher than you can possibly imagine. And I encourage everybody to dream as big as you can possibly dream of. If the ultimate dream is to have 5 private jets and a villa in every part of the world, then that's what you dream of. But you have to be conscious, come back down to earth and realize that in order to achieve that, there's lots of little goals you need to achieve first.
But when it comes to luxury, right? Like everybody has a different definition of what luxury is. What is really luxury to you?
So to me, luxury is a lifestyle, if you will. Luxury is a way of living, right? It's how you set your mind. I'll give you a perfect example. I had a young kid came in here. He's been trying to get a job here forever. And he literally emailed us saying and texted us and DM'd us saying, I don't care if I have to wash the floors. I want to work for Luxury Bazaar. And the one position we had open was social media guy or girl. He's like, I got it. I'll do Instagram for the company, no problem. This was a couple of years back. And we hired the kid. And in a matter of 6 months, he quickly transitioned into sales because that's what he really wanted to do. And in another 6 months, the kid was averaging $1 million a month in sales. Not bad for the kid. Now he's averaging even more. And one of my top sales guys, etc. He walked into the office one day and he was wearing a Balenciaga t-shirt, about a $500 t-shirt, give or take, $400 t-shirt. And one of the other guys was trolling him, was making fun of him. It's like, yeah, because everybody needs a $400, $500 t-shirt. And they were going back and forth because I call them all kids. I have a bunch of young people working here, so believe me, it's very entertaining daily. Keep me young. And I called him in my office, and Alex, I said, this is how you have to look at this. Yes, most people will think it's stupid to spend a $400 on a t-shirt, right? You can buy a Calvin Klein t-shirt for $20 and it'll do the same thing. I said, it's not about you spending $400 or $500 on a t-shirt. It's about the standard that you set for yourself in terms of living life. What you're doing is you're setting a standard for yourself of the type of lifestyle you want to live.
But in reality, it's about what you said. It's about setting up the standard and then looking up on how you can make more money. How can you take advantage of the opportunity that we're facing and find a different angle? Abundance mindset.
The biggest mistake people are making right now in this market is in businesses, no matter the size of their businesses, is they're scaling down. They're looking to cut expenses. They're looking to, maybe consolidate some staff, let go of some staff, just to get their monthly expense down, weekly expense, whatever it might be. That's something that you should be doing all the time. You don't just jump up and say, oh shit, the market is down, let me look at my expenses. No, that's something you should look at regularly. But the biggest mistake businesses are making right now is they're looking to scale down, anticipating a downturn in the market. Well, I don't care what business you're in, you usually make more money in a down market than you are in a market that's going up. Because in a market that's consistently going up, your margins usually shrink. Yeah, your sales go up, but your margins shrink, right? In a down market, again, in a type of business where you're buying and selling product or even manufacturing product, your margins should go up because now it's a buyer's market and you're able to buy better. All while providing a better deal to your end consumer. This is the time to scale your business, being prepared and to have cash on hand to be able to actually scale your business now. Because if we're here, when it gets here, it goes quick. And if you're not ready, you're not going to take advantage of that spike because you make money on the move, not at the top, not at the bottom. Whether you're moving up or down is irrelevant.